Welcome to our latest Loctite webinar. Today, we're going to be looking at assembly automation and Loctite's total end-to-end solutions. So I'm not going to be your presenter today, unfortunately. We've got David Getterson. He's been at Henkel for 4 years, spent 3 of those as an equipment engineer and 1 year as an application engineer, so very experienced. Just a few admin tips before we get started. So I'm sure you've all used Teams before, but you can just put any questions that you've got in the chat and we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. If you have any questions that aren't answered or you're interested in some further information, catalogues, data sheets, or a free line survey, you can scan that QR code and I'll also put the link in the chat as well. Okay, so I'll now hand over to David.
Thank you, George, and hello everybody. And engineer was asked to do this webinar, but unfortunately it wasn't available today, so you're stuck with me for the next 30 minutes. So let's jump straight into it then. So on today's agenda then, we've got to do an introduction to our assembly solutions, and then finally we're going to talk about our new range of dispense and light curing equipment. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. So let's look at some industry challenges then. When we look at this list in front of you with climate change, waste, energy use, these are massive challenges that we're being faced as a whole society and not just industry. But of course, industry does play a big part in this. So sustainability is ultimately future-proofing the world's resources of today's society. Now, just focusing on this webinar and what this webinar is about, some of the ways that we can help with by using larger packs of adhesive with our dispense equipment, therefore reducing the amount of waste. Some of our health and safety grades of adhesive, and all our new dispense equipment is energy efficient. But when we look at the bigger picture, Henkel are looking at its operations and raw materials so we can make a significant contribution to our customer sustainability agenda and our own. So in conjunction with the previous slide, we're also seeing an increase in regulations. So we're confronted by these on a European and a global scale, and they have an impact on future design, product development and production. At Henkel, our new chemical product and equipment developments have a clear focus on fulfilling the demands of these regulations. So let's look at some of our assembly challenges then. So looking at other assembly methods, some traditional methods, they can be slow, unreliable and unregulated. And just to look at a couple of examples of these, if we take a nut and bolt, we know that using traditional mechanical locking methods such as a spring washer of all these different locking methods for different sizes of bolts, and that means they've got to be stored, and that adds complexity. Another example could be using rivets. You have to damage the surface by making holes for the rivets, and then when you're using the rivets to put panels together, for example, you're creating a localized stress at the point the rivet is applied. So moving to some of our assembly solutions then, so we can help increase productivity, improve reliability and even simplify design. Now, just an example of this could be if you were to use one of our benchtop robots with our dispense equipment to apply adhesive, we can improve the accuracy of the placement and the volume we apply and the speed at which we're doing it. So having the right amount of adhesive in the right place will improve the reliability and quality. And I'm sure the sales team won't thank me for saying this, but more often than not, it reduces the amount of adhesive you need. You could be applying adhesive to multiple parts on a robot, which increases the productivity, but it also frees up the operator to do a different task while the robot is running. If we take the example from the previous slide of a nut and bolt coming loose over time, if you were to use thread locker on this nut and bolt to keep it in place, we know that it won't come loose over time, and that reduces your downtime and it increases the reliability. It also has the added benefit of sealing, and that then prevents any corrosion from forming. Another way could be using a bonded joint could lead to design improvements like making a component lighter. That's because we're spreading any load that's on that joint across the whole surface area of the adhesive joint itself. Solutions can help, but there are plenty more that we could talk about if we had more time. At Henkel, we have a comprehensive equipment offering. Now, on today's webinar, we're focusing on the new range of dispense equipment and light curing equipment, but we have equipment for such as volumetric systems, two-component systems, and our benchtop robot. So we have a full range of equipment to choose from. As well as the equipment, we also have a wide range of adhesives and different technologies to suit a wide range of applications. It could be small component bonding with our cyanacrylate adhesives, which are more commonly known as super glues. You could be using our cure on demand systems, which is our light cure technology. In the sealing range, we have silicons or MS products. And of course, we've got our famous red bottles containing our anaerobic adhesive, such as our thread lockers. Now, it's worth noting at this point that all these different adhesive technologies and pack sizes are compatible with our wide range of equipment solutions. So at Henkel, not only can we provide the adhesive, support and technical expertise. Now that could be selection of the adhesive based on your application requirement. It could be help with your joint design. It could be conducting some lab trials and lab demos with our equipment. We're able to come onto your site and provide training on how to use our adhesives and equipment. And what this means is we are providing the total solution. So this is the end-to-end solution that we talked about at the start. So we can provide help with your application, the adhesive, and the dispense equipment. So you basically you've got one phone call to make and one supplier for all your needs. So we're now going to move on to our latest range of equipment, starting with the dispense equipment itself. So the first thing we're going to look at is the next generation reservoirs, and then we're going to move on to the integrated dispensers. Now, all our reservoirs have low-level sensing capability. They're all compatible with various adhesive technologies, such as anaerobic, cyanacrylate adhesives, and UV adhesives, and they accept multiple different pack sizes, such as the 250 ml anaerobic, 500 gram cyanacrylate, and the 1 litre UV bottles. Looking at the first item on this page, the RC30 manual reservoir, this is our entry-level unit. It's very simple to use, quick to set up, and you can be up and running in a matter of minutes. It works only with pressure, and it has a pressure range of 0 to 7 bar with a big gauge on the front. You simply put the adhesive bottle in its original packaging into the reservoir. The product is then transferred to a manually operated valve via the pressure. The valve itself is open and closed by an operator pressing the trigger, so it's a very operator-dependent item. Moving to the next items on the list, the RC32 and the RC34 automatic reservoirs. Now, you wouldn't use these as a standalone item like the RC30. These would be used with our Loctite controllers, and they are compatible with all our Loctite controllers. And you would use one of these if you're using a specific dispense head that needs one of our Loctite controllers or some peripheral equipment like a rotor spray. You would then use the controller, the reservoir, and then the extra equipment as well. Now, the reason we've got two models, the external dimensions, etc., are all the same, but the main difference is the RC32 low-level sensor has one output signal, which is empty, and the RC34 output signal has two, which is low and empty. Moving to our integrated dispensers then, what we mean by an integrated dispenser is you have the pressure reservoir, but you also have the ability to control dispense valves. Now, both our integrated dispensers have low-level sensing capability, and again, they're compatible with all our various adhesives and pack sizes. They're also compatible with our whole range of dispense valves. The RC40 then has a pressure range of 0 to 7 bar. It can operate 2 valves independently, so they can be running at different times. One valve could be open for a second, and another valve could be open for 2 seconds, for example. It has an LCD screen and touch buttons to change the settings, and you're actually able to lock the buttons to stop any inadvertent changing of the settings. Moving to the RC50 then, this is now our premium integrated dispenser. It has a simple to use color touch screen. It has a precision digital regulator, which is useful when doing low viscosity operations because it has that finer control over the pressure. And again, it can operate 2 valves independently, not only independently in terms of the amount of time they're running, but also in modes. So in this instance, you can have one in timed mode and one in continuous mode. So I'm currently in a classroom environment here. We're now going to move over to the labs so we can do a demonstration of the RC50 in action.
Hello and welcome to the lab. So on the previous slide we talked about the RC50 and here we have the RC50 in real life. So some of the main features of this unit are, in the lid is already machined the preparation for 2 valves. The reservoir fitting is installed into one and the second reservoir fitting comes in a bag of bits with the unit. Moving down to the front then, it has a nice colour touch screen. It has the ability to control 2 valves independently, which means 2 valves can be running at different times. And it has a precision digital pressure regulator, which gives you a bit more fine control on the pressure setting, which helps if you've got low viscosity CA or anaerobic applications. I'm now going to move over to this side here so I can show you how we would load adhesive into the unit itself. So just for information, this is actually our RC40, which we talked about on the previous slide as well, but we're just using it to demo how we load into it. So with these units comes the product cage, and in the back of the reservoirs is a low-level sensor. So we simply slide the cage so the bottle will be facing the low-level sensor at the back. If you're using a 500 gram CA bottle, then it slides into the semicircular part at the back. And if you're using our 250 ml anaerobics, then you use the 2 straight pieces there, and that then will simply load straight in as so. When that's all in, with some product tube, then simply goes into the bottle. When we apply the pressure then, the adhesive is pushed out of the bottle, up the product tube to a dispense valve. So there is absolutely no need to decant any adhesive out of the packaging. We use the original packaging. So moving back over here then. So what we've got in front of us now is a pretty common setup with a benchtop robot and an RC50. Now the RC50 can be used as a standalone item, but it is most commonly used with a bigger system, generally integrated in with one of our robots. So talking about the robots then, so this is a 400D model, which means on the X and Y axis you have 400 mil by 400 mil, and then on the Z axis, which is your up and down, you have 100 millimeters of travel. We have 4 standard sizes, which is 200, 300, 400 and 500. They have the ability to have 100 programs with 4,000 inputs on each program, so there is plenty of flexibility and they're really easy to connect to the RC50 via cable, just plug and play type of system. So on the head of the robot is our UV diaphragm valve, which is suitable for anaerobics and light cure adhesives. The RC50 is compatible with all our pressure time valves. Just for this demo, we've selected this one. So that's enough about the system in general. We're now going to do a nice close-up shot of this system running. So I'm now going to run a basic program to demonstrate this setup working.
So that was the demo then of the RC50 connected to one of our benchtop robots, which is a nice, simple plug and play system. Now I'm going to talk about a live application in the field. This is actually some equipment that I set up at the customer, and the customer needed to do very small drops of cyanacrylate adhesive to bond a sensor onto an aluminium plate. They needed repeatability, accuracy, and reliability. And the way they were doing it was by putting some adhesive onto a toothpick and then dropping that adhesive into position. Now, as you can imagine, that's not a very repeatable process, and it was very operator dependent. So they needed the system that was good to use and repeatable for every operator. Now, we actually did some in-house trials here with our CA diaphragm valve, and although we were achieving small drops, they weren't small enough for the customer's needs. So we then moved to our VA40 volumetric drop valve for CA, and we were able to achieve drop sizes of around 1 to 1.5 microliter in size. Now, the solution we created for them was the integrated dispenser, a 300D benchtop robot, the VA40 valve, and the 460 cyanacrylate adhesive. Now, the way the VA40 valve works is it's volumetric valve, so it's independent of viscosity changes, and we fill a metered chamber and then we push that volume out. So you get the same amount every time, so it's highly repeatable and highly accurate. So we improved their precision, we reduced the adhesive that they were actually using, and we increased their production by 200%. So that's the end of the dispense equipment, and we're now going to take a look at our new light curing equipment. So starting with the CL40 high intensity LED spot system then. So the controller is a nice, simple to use color touch screen. It has 3 operating modes: timed, continuous, and advanced step mode. We have 2 LED types. We have a 365 nanometer and a 405 nanometer. The controller can run up to 4 LED heads completely independently, running at different times, or they can be run together with the link mode. Some of the benefits of LED technology is it's instant on-off, low heat generation, and they last a lot longer than the old style mercury bulbs. Moving to the CL42 high intensity flood system then. So with the spot system, we're doing small area, small drops, small beads. We're now curing at a much bigger area. So the LED lights are 100 by 100 millimeter curing area, and they contain multiple high-powered LED heads. The controller has the same color touchscreen functionality as the CL40, so it has the same 3 operating modes, which are timed, continuous, and the advanced step mode, and it can run up to 2 LED heads. Again, the LED heads come in 2 types, 365 nanometer and 405 nanometer. Now, this system can be run by itself with just the controller and the lights, but you can also use it in conjunction with our curing chamber. It has a nice slot at the bottom for the controller to sit in, and you can fit up to 2 LED heads on the top. The chamber has a safety interlock door, so if you were to open the chamber whilst the system is running, the lights cut out. Again, I'm in a classroom environment here, so we're now going to switch over to the lab so we can do a demonstration of the CL40 and the CL42 system in action.
So on the previous slide, we saw the CL40 spot system. So this is the CL40 controller. So some of the benefits of this controller: it's got a nice color touch screen, a simple to use interface. It can connect up to 4 LED heads. The heads can be run independently, programmed independently, or they can be linked together and run at the same time. Some of the benefits of LED technology are you get instant on-off, you get less heat, and they generally last longer than the old mercury bulb style systems. So moving to the LED heads themselves then. So we do 2 types, the 365 and the 405 nanometer. So hopefully you can see that says 365 on there. So this one is the 365. And then what we do is we do 3 lenses for each model, 3, 6, and 10. So hopefully you can see that one there. So this one is the 6mm. And the reason why we have different lenses is it just changes that focal point of the LED head. So I'm now going to come back over here and we're just going to do a little demo of the unit itself. So I'm wearing my UV goggles as PPE as we're going to be turning these lights on. So as I previously said, this controller can be used with just one light at any one time. So if I press the foot switch now, one light will turn on. But we can also turn it on by pressing the control panel. Now we can also have them so they all come on at the same time, just by doing a simple link, saving the settings, and then if I press the foot pedal again, they all turn on, and I've got this set so they turn off at different times, so just to make that more visible. And again, if I just press the controller, the same thing happens again. So that's one way of using it. Another way is simply to have it in your hand, and you can simply have it mobile and wave it around where you need it. And the final way is to have this integrated into a bigger system with our benchtop robot, etc., which we're going to demonstrate now for you. So here it is. Here's the final way in which we can use the CL40. And what you can see here is we've got a very similar setup to what we had on the previous demo, where we've got the RC50, we've got the UV dispense valve, and we have our benchtop robot. What we've changed is we've changed the adhesive to a UV curing adhesive, and we've added the CL40 spot head to the robot and the controller integrated to the robot. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a close-up demo of this working, where we'll dispense the adhesive and then cure the adhesive on spot. And what that gives you is the ability to dispense onto your component and then cure it in the same place as well, or even do a little bit of assembly and then cure it. So there we can see the robot has done the dispense and the UV spot cure has followed it and cured the product. So I'd now just like to show you that the product has cured fully on the plate itself. So as you can see, when I rub my finger across it, the adhesive isn't rubbing off because that's now fully cured on the plate. So now I'd like to introduce you to the CL42 flood cure, which is going to be the next demo. So as I said, we're going to show you the CL42 Plus system next, and here it is. So some of the features and benefits of this are then the controller. It can take 2 LED heads. Each one can be programmed independently. It's got a nice colour touch screen and a simple to use interface. Moving on to the LED heads themselves then. So this is a flood head, so it's a much greater area that we're curing. So it's 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters, and there's 120 high-powered LEDs on each flood head. The flood heads themselves come in 365 or 405 nanometers, the same as the spot cure system. And as this is LED technology, you get the same benefits as you do for the spot cure, instant on-off, long life, low power usage, and all of those good things. So moving to this setup then, so the flood system can be used on its own, so just the lights and the controller. It can also be used with this nice chamber, so it's got a nice slot for the controller to sit in. It comes with the ability to have 2 LED heads connected. You also get the tray to connect 1 LED head, and it also comes with a shelf. Now, as the lights are offset and not central, the shelf itself tells you where the front is, and then it gives you the areas at which you can cure in, whether you're using 1 or 2 LED heads. So the chamber itself, it's got a nice little viewing window with the safety glass, and it has a safety lock on it, so if you open the door whilst it's running, it will stop the LED lights from working. So I'm now going to demonstrate this system being used, and it's very similar to the CR42 spot cure. The controller works exactly the same way. It's just been rotated 90 degrees to the landscape. So we can start it with one head by pressing the button or the foot switch, and that's on both sides. And then we can also link them together so they come on at the same time as the CL42 spot system, with the foot switch or the controller. And again, I staggered the timing so you can see them running independently. So that's the end of the demo. So we'll now go back to the webinar and continue with the webinar.
So there was the demonstration of the CL40 and the CL42 in action. I'd just like to quickly talk about consumables. So at Henkel, we do a wide range of consumables. And for me, this is the first port of call for equipment. If you're squeezing adhesive directly out of the bottle, the simple action of putting a dispense tip onto the bottle gives you finer control instantly. So we do a wide range of dispense needles and tips, a wide range of mixed nozzles for 2-component adhesives, and we also do a load of syringe accessories for our syringe dispensing. So it's now time for any questions. So if you do have any, please put them into the chat and we'll be happy to answer them.
So it would appear you've done a brilliant job of explaining our equipment, David, as we don't have any questions yet, but I'll just give it a minute or so.
No problem.
See if any come up. Okay, assuming that there's no questions, if you do have any questions after the webinar, you can use that link that we spoke about earlier and get in contact with us through the contact form.
Okay, so yeah, as Georgia just said, if you do have any questions or you'd like to talk about anything that you've seen today or discuss any applications that you might have, please feel free to get into contact with us. I've now come to the end of my part for the webinar. I'd just like to take this time to thank your attention and attendance to this webinar, and I hope you have an enjoyable rest of your day. I'm now going to hand you over to George, who's going to discuss Loctite Explore a little bit with you. Thank you very much.
So, Loctite Explore. Loctite Explore is our new free e-learning platform. So if you'd like to continue your learning after this webinar, you can go on there. We've got some great tuned into this webinar, and there's also opportunities on there if you're a teacher to get the students involved as well. So I'll take this opportunity to thank David again. Thank you all for joining. And if you're interested in an inline survey, there's a link in the chat where you can sign up. And if you have any questions, require any data sheets or anything like that, use the link to head over to our website and you can see them there. Thank you very much.